Hello, hello. As I said earlier, I will be doing a video today on how to do or set up your cover sheet as well as do some of your multi-views. This is the first stage in the setting up your drawings, right? So once again, we're using our Onshape program. And as you can see, I've already got all of my parts created and I finished my assembly. Not only did I finish my assembly, but I also went through and did a couple of things. First of all, I have my exploded view. I have two of them actually. I did a second one. I thought I liked the second one better. Activate. Boom. If I turn it around the way I'd show it, which would be more like this, you can see that I extended the front end out with the tire and the rim out from the front end. So I just thought it looked better that way. So I changed it up, and I could actually go back and delete the first one if I just do that. So I only have one because I like the way this one looks. So the other thing I did is I set up my BOM or my bill of materials to include the description. Got rid of any extra columns simply by right clicking on it and saying remove, right? Um, so I have the item, I have the quantity, and then I added in the names, all in caps, all the time, right? So I have my BOM done, I have my assembly done, everything's done. The one thing I do want to point out, every time I hit isometric view, I get this. And I didn't really want this on my cover sheet. It's turned around the wrong way. I want the front end showing. So I turned around like this. It's just the way I'd like to see it, right? And I'm going to go back over here and I'm going to say name views. So I click on that and I can say, I'm going to call it new ISO view and just hit the plus. By doing that, when I go to do my drawing file and I bring in my assembled view, my exploded view, I have the opportunity to choose a different view, not just the isometric that was the default. So it gives you that extra time. So let's switch over. And we're getting ready to do our project. And the first thing you do, and I'm sure you remember, you go to public and we have to go find our PA template. PA template. I put my last name on there and I think it just makes it easier to find because I'm the owner. It's just called PA template, but because I'm the owner, I think by putting the last name on there, it seems to show up faster, that's all. There it is. Boom. Now, the first thing you've got to do, you don't want to be playing around with a PA template. You want to save that template. So go to copy to my workspace. I want my own copy before I start doing anything. I don't want to be, if you do something on the PA template now, it's actually out there for everybody else to see. So I'm going to call it my reverse engineering project. And always you want to put your name or initials on it. I think I just put my last name on it. It seems to be the easiest way to go about it. So I started my reverse engineering. This is actually called your drawing file. Every CAD system has basically three types of files: parts, assemblies, and drawings. And this is your drawing file. I've established this PA template because it's just easy to use. Matter of fact, while I'm right here, here's my title block. I'm just going to double click on that, get rid of what's in there. Reverse engineering project. Fill in that title block. Now here it's going to be, every page is going to be different here. In this case, I'm just going to call it the cover sheet because that's what we're starting out with. You put your last name. I'm going to put in the date, 21. Oop, got rid of everything. That's right. 20. Check. You don't have to worry about the Academy. That's fine. You don't have to worry about the scale. It automatically updates. The page size is A. A is 8.5 by 11, and the sheet's going to change this time because we're going to do it a little different than we have before. What do I mean by that? We're actually going to use sheets. As you can see right underneath my picture, we have PA template. And before I used to have you duplicate your PA template, which worked okay. The problem with that system was when you go to print it, you get one page at a time. If you set it up like this, and you can see it says sheets over here, here's sheet 1. That's what we're on right now. If I go back and just go duplicate, then sheet 2, right here, you'll see, as a matter of fact, it will come in here and say 2 of 2, right? So that's going to be our sheet 2. And then I'm going to do that again, duplicate, and I'm going to duplicate, and you're going to duplicate it as many times as you need to duplicate it. In my case, I have a cover sheet, and then I have 6 parts that I have to fully dimension. So I'm going to use 7 pages. So there's 5, there's 7. So right now I'm on 7 of 7. That means I'm on the last page. You know that you're on the last page because it's highlighted over here under your sheets, right? I'm going to double click on sheet 1, and I'm going to go back and just say, I'm going to rename that. I'm going to call it my cover sheet. Just makes it easier for you to know what sheet you're on if you name it. Cover sheet. The next one, I double clicked on it, rename. This is going to be my center part of my car, so I'm just going to call it center. Sheet number 3. Now I'm on 3. I'm going to rename that one. Let's see. Front end. I think the front end was the next one. By the way, if you don't get the order right, it's not a big deal. You're going to be able to just grab these and move them so you can switch the order. You can add them. You can delete. So there's a lot of capabilities there. Rename. This is the back end. At least that's what I called my parts. You can call it whatever you want. And this one, rename. This is my windshield. I did the orange car. And double click. Rename. This one was the rim, tire rim. And the last one I have to do is my tire. So the last page of the whole packet is going to be the tire. Right now I'm on the 7th page, but I'm going to go back and work my way to the front. Back to my front page, or my cover sheet. Now you don't have to have this open all the time. If you hit that button right there, it just disappears. See that cover sheet? It tells you what you're on, and you can go back and switch them as you go through. The biggest benefit of this, like I said earlier, is when you go to print. Watch, I'm going to show you right now. When you go to print, you don't get just one page. You get sheet number 1, sheet number 2. You get all the pages all in one file, and that's going to be a big help later on. So that when it comes time to turn in your project, which obviously you know is due on the 28th, you're going to be able to just turn in one PDF file, and that's it. And how convenient will that be? Instead of trying to turn in like we did for the last one, I think we ended up turning in 9 sheets, 9 separate sheets, which was kind of a pain. So now we're ready to start our cover sheet, and our cover sheet requires the assembled view, exploded view, BOM, bill of materials, right? And the call outs, or what they call the balloons. Insert. I don't have anything in the document right here, so I'm going to go to my Onshape account, find my assembly. I'm going to go into assemblies. See that? It says you want to create a new version of it. And the reason I have a new version there is because I added that other view. Remember that new ISO view? So I'm going to say sure. Call it good. Boom. Now when it comes in, it's set to the front view. Give it a second. There's your front view. And I don't want the front view. I want the ISO view, but not the ISO view that it defaults to. See how it comes to the default and it turns around the wrong way? Well, there you go. I want to turn it around the other way, and you'll see that I have made a bunch of different options, and one was ISO front. They're all doing the same thing. They're just turning it around. ISO view. Turn it around so that I'll be able to see it from the front view. I know just from my experience that this is going to be too big. I have to make it smaller. So I'm going to put it right there, pick a point, and it's going to put it in there. Now, the only views that are shaded are isometric views. So I can go through and just right click on that and say, show shaded view. It looks better when it's shaded. And then I'm going to do the same thing again. Insert, assembly, here it comes. Yep, I'm going to do exploded view too, because remember I have an exploded view this time. I don't want to do the front though. I want to do the same view that I did before. As a matter of fact, it changes the scale on you as well, so it'll change the scale. I'm going to place this centered on that left-hand side. Comes in black and white, but I'm going to right click and I'm just going to say show shaded view. Now, one thing to remember when you're doing your cover sheet, you're going to have your assembled view, you're going to have your exploded view. They have to be the same angle, the same isometric view, turned around the same way basically, and they have to be the same scale. So whatever this scale is, you're going to bring that in. Notice it updates the scale already, 1 to 2. That's a half-inch scale, meaning it's half the size that it normally is. So I have my 2 of the big components, the assembled view, we have the exploded view, and now I'm ready to start to bring in the BOM. I've already set up my bill of materials, so it's not a problem. I just click on the BOM or bill of materials. It comes right up and you just pick the corner and it's done. It is that easy. Now, I can't edit this in the drawing file. I would have to go back into my assembly and open up my BOM, my bill of materials, and I could edit it here and it will update over there, but I can't edit it when I'm in my drawing file. Just be aware of that. But it's right. I set it all up so it comes out nice and even, and then we're ready to start to do our callouts, or I call them balloons. The rules for balloons is that the arrow should be pointing towards the center of the object. The arrowhead should never be inside the object. It should be always on the outside of the object. The leader lines that come out to that have to be diagonal. That means they cannot be vertical like this. They cannot be horizontal. Never horizontal, or even give you the illusion of being horizontal. So I'm going to go back. There we go. We're doing well. I got to do the center part. Comes in like so. And our front end. Once I get them all in place, I hit check. By the way, you can still move these around. You just grab them, move them any way you want. So you place them in there where you feel like they're going to be. The only problems I have is people that do this. They bring it way out so it crosses the borderline. Nothing ever crosses the borderline. It means they're too far out. They're horizontal, they're vertical. And a lot of times I'll get this, even this, I'll have the arrowhead way inside the object. And that's a real problem too, because I can't see the arrowhead because it's inside the object. It should be on the outer edge of the object. And that's what I would consider a pretty clean cover sheet. I do look at whether or not you centered it. Like you see how it moves around. I'm looking here to see if it's in the middle between the border and the title block. So I'm going to bring it down just a little more, maybe right about there. I'll drop it in there. So I'm saying this space here, that looks good. This is a little close. Same thing on this side. I make sure it's spread out, like even. When it comes to an exploded view, I'm looking for things like, is there a white space between each part? No part overlaps another, right? Does it pull apart the same logical way that it should pull apart? And all in all, I think it looks pretty good. Now I'm ready to move on to, by the way, all this stuff is recorded underneath your sheet. The assemble view is brought in, isometric assembly, but you don't have to pay attention to that. You just hit that, closes it up. I'm going to double click on the center part, and usually the first thing I go in is just update this because it's not my center part. It is it's not my cover sheet, it's my center. Center part or car, whatever you're going to do. The date's up. If you have your name in there already, you're all set, so that's nice. Now, what do I do here? This is where any work that you've done before in terms of your sketches is going to really pay off, because I have my front view, top view, right side, left side view. I have all my views. I have all my dimensions. I know how I want to set it up. So having that sketch available to me is going to make it easy to go back and actually add these different views. So view, I'm going to insert, not an assembly, so I'm just going to say insert under in my object. Let's see, I'm going to go back and find the center, which is the bottom one here. Boom. And it's going to come right up. Now, interesting, the way this brings it up, it has the peg going to the left. If I wanted to go to the right, like my sketches are, I'll just flip it around. I'll go see, remember, you get to choose what the front view looks like. And I had it written down as this way. So there's my front. Now it switches from insert right into project. So now I can go up and project my top. I'm still in project, so I can pick the front again, and I'm going to project my right side. I'm still in project, pick my front and pick the left side because I got to do the socket dimensions there. And last but not least, we're going to pick the front and we're going to do an isometric view, just because it's so easy to do, I guess. And those are the views that I need. So I'm done with project. I'm just going to hit escape. I'll escape out of it. So there's all my views. Now watch what happens. If I move the front view up or down, the other two follow. If I move it right or left, the other two fall, because our multi-view drawings, they always stay aligned. They always stay aligned. The only thing that's ever shaded is the isometric. The rest of it stays black and white. Although I can turn on, if I go in here, I could turn on my hidden lines. Now this happens to me all the time. See how that's buried up there? Hidden lines is the top one. So if I click here, I can show hidden lines. And I would show it on the top view because it's not really distracting. And I'm going to go click right there. There we go. Show hidden lines. I would show it on the front view because it's not distracting. You can't dimension to those hidden lines, so there really is no purpose in them. If I turn it on here, I think they're taking away from the drawing, especially when it starts to dimension all these little tiny things. See all these hidden lines? So I find that distracting, and you don't need them on, so I would just right click and say, turn them off. So once you have your hidden lines the way you want, the next big step is to, if you didn't put your center lines in, you need to put your center lines in. Now, if I just went to center mark and just hit the circle, I get that little tiny little center line. It's better than nothing, but not exactly what we're looking for. I'm going to get rid of that. What I like to see is nice, clean center marks. I'm just going to get rid of that, which requires you to make a two center point. So I'd come in here. This little diamond is selecting the quadrant to quadrant, quadrant to quadrant, and watch, it's going to make that perfect little center mark right there. That's what I'm looking for. So center mark, center mark. It's interesting that when I zoom out, it adjusts so it looks better. Anything that's a circle, always pick the outside circle, the biggest circle that you have. Center mark, center mark, center mark. These are quadrants, right? Quadrant to quadrant, boom. So always, before you start dimensioning a multi-view, you start by putting in your center marks wherever there is a full circle, because you have to dimension to those things. So center mark. I wait till I see the triangle. There it is. Or the diamond. I guess it's a diamond shape. It looks better when it's zoomed out than when it's zoomed in. Center mark. Once you finish your center mark, then you're ready to start your dimensioning process. Center mark, center mark, center mark. Dimensioning in Onshape, actually, as you know, because we did our train project, is not that difficult to do. The problem is where to put all the dimensions. Now, I have already placed all my dimensions on there, and you can see where they're all located. So you have your own sketches. You're going to work from your own sketches. But for my purposes, I did something like this. Dimension from there. This is called a location dimension for that circle. And I'm not going to slow down. I'm just going to keep putting them in. They should be about the same height. I can move that down afterwards. I need to know how far it is from here to here. If I move it this way, you get different dimensions, but put it right about there. That's good. Now I'm going to do some more dimensioning. By the way, all these dimensions, you certainly can go back and update them or change them as you feel if they're not placed in the right spot or whatever, we can always play around with that. These dimensions over here. By the way, as you know, I'm a big fan of Tatum or baseline dimensioning, which is dimension there. Then we go right over the top to the next one. That's a second dimension. And then we're going to go right over the top to the overall depth. We have a third dimension. To me, that's so much cleaner than trying to dimension like a chain, dimensioning one to the next, to the next, to the next. Plus, it's actually easier to build that way. People, manufacturers and stuff, love to look at a reference point. Now, when it comes to putting up your leaders or doing dimensions like so, click. Just notice it automatically does the leader. You bring it out. Remember, these can't be horizontal or vertical anymore either. And then if I need to add something, that's where I open that up. And if I need to add a depth, in this case, we're going to use our depth symbol. Leave a space, 0.003 with a really small little hole, depth. I just cut it in just a little tiny, tiny bit. And I still got more dimensions to do. I got to do that dimension and so on and so on. So I have a bunch of those little dimensions. But I also have this dimension. So I'm going to go back here, dimension. For this fillet, because I have 4 corners, I could say times 4, or better yet, I can use the old abbreviation TYP, all in caps, which basically means typical. Anytime you see a curve like that, it is 0.16, okay? Now, a couple of things. Once I'm out of dimensioning, and I'm still in dimensioning right now, but once I'm out of dimensioning, it allows me to do anything I want. I can move it up, I can move it down, I can move it to any spot that I needed to move. And one of my pet peeves is you don't need all these zeros. They're called trailing zeros. So we're going to get rid of all the trailing zeros for all of these things. Notice I just went and clicked them all. Go back to my precision and say 2 places after the decimal point, and then hit escape, and it's going to clean them all up. See, I think originally I told you to do that after every time you dimension change it, but it's so much easier just to do it like boom, one shot, select everything that every dimension and do them all. One more thing I'm going to show you. I'm not nearly done with my dimensioning. There's a bunch of dimensioning still required to do, but I'm going to show you 1 or 2 more things. Let me show you this. Sometimes it's difficult to dimension a peg like this or something really small. One of the tools that we have is called an alternate view. It's called a detail view. It's right here on the top button where we have insert and all that other stuff. In a detail view, you just bring in, pick anywhere inside the part, and then make the box big, like that big. And what it does, as you can very well see, excuse me, it makes a larger view of it. So it enlarges that portion of it so that you can add dimensions to it. So you can see it, you can add dimensions to it. And the nice thing about a detail view too is this thing doesn't have to line up with anything, meaning it doesn't have to be perfectly in line with it. I can put it anywhere it fits. Matter of fact, maybe I'll put it down here if I like it better down there. In this case, I think I'm going to put it up here. The text can go anywhere, so I'm just going to throw the text up there. And then I can actually add dimensions to this one. So I dimension it from here, and the dimensions will accurately reflect the size of the part that I made. I know that was 0.03. And then I know this one to that edge was 0.3. Notice I'm using my baseline dimensioning technique again. And then from this line to the outside edge was 0.33. How nice is that? But it allows me to do all these tiny dimensions that I can't seem to get to, like that 1.04. If you don't like the way it comes out, flip it around a little bit. You still don't like the way it is, place it, then get out of dimensioning, and it will allow you to move it around even more than you have already. So, for instance, now I can start to dimension, and you may even want to add a little plus mark right there. Boom. So now I can add a dimension from the end, maybe this point here, to the center there, so I know how far that comes in. All these little tiny dimensions that, imagine if you will, if we tried to put all those little dimensions on this piece, it would have been pretty challenging. So that's called a detail view, a detail view. The other view that we're going to talk about a lot about next week is called a section view. And a section view is cutting the object right in half, which is kind of interesting to see. Now I could do a section view of this piece right here, or let's see, how do I want to do this? I wonder if I can move it up. Let me just take a second and see if I can adjust it so I can get a decent section view. I'm moving that up so that I can move these up, as long as they're not like overlapping or crossing each other, that'd be fine. And it leaves me a little bit of space underneath there if I wanted to do a section view. What is the benefit of a section view? Let's watch. We've done insert, right? We've done project views. This is auxiliary. We haven't gone over those yet, but we will. Here's a section view. And section views are actually really easy to do. Do you want a vertical or do you want a horizontal? In this case, I want a horizontal. This is called a cutting plane line. And I'm just going to pick the center of all this right there. And you'll see that it has this really heavy cutting plane line go across there with the two arrows facing the other direction. And I'm doing, just by a name, I'm doing a section, cutting that whole front section right off. Look at that. That's actually kind of neat. As you can see, now I have all of this stuff. They're solids. Instead, I'm going to just move this out of the way, put it over here or something. But all of this stuff now I can dimension to. Whereas if you look here, they're all hidden. I can't dimension to that. So I'm going to add a section underneath there so that I can include even more dimensions. And you'll find there'll be dimensions that are really hard to put in there. So as I'm looking at it, so I have the front view, I have a top view, I have the right side, I have the left side, I have an ISO. I did a detailed view up here to get, all those tiny details. And then I put my cutting plane across here so that I can do a section of it. These section lines, that's what these are called, are where we actually cut the material away, virtually cut the material away so you could see what's inside. It's like taking that little part down to the table saw in the wood shop and cutting that right along there, right along this whole front of the peg and everything. And you can see what the inside and the outside looks like at the same time. Now, once I have this all set up, I'm done with my center. Of course, you're going to go back and start on your front end based on your sketches, like where they are. The other thing you can do, and I'm sure you realize this, when you're all said and done, if you didn't finish your sketches, guess what? All you got to do is go back and copy this, right? Front, top, right side, and you could put all your dimensions that you need in there and everything else. So you could copy your drawing files and use those as your sketches. You shouldn't do that because it's really not the proper order for the process, but it's been done many times before. So hopefully that helps. Good luck to you guys, and I'll be talking to you very soon.